My teen years were in the 1980s. And that being said, part of the thing that I really loved in my teen years was professional wrestling, specifically WWF. It's when it really started to blow up. WrestleMania debuted in 1985, and wrestling just exploded on the scene. And I was a huge fan through all of that time. Loved a lot of the characters, a lot of the wrestlers, and it was one of the things that I really cherished. So much so that I still watch all those old WrestleManias to this day, more so than the newer WrestleManias. But at a point, once it got into the 90s, some of those established stars started to get a little older. Or maybe it was the fact that I was starting to get a little bit older and maybe getting bored with it or something, but they started to change a little bit. You had characters in the 80s, and we all knew that it was a sports entertainment spectacle. We knew all the matches were predetermined, except for some of the old guard that really held on to the fact that they thought wrestling was real. But for the most part, we all knew that it was an athletic play. So the idea of thinking that it was real or any of that it's doesn't matter. It was just something that I really, really loved. And I loved a lot of those characters. And I talked on To Boldly Pod that I always leaned more towards the heels or the bad guys more so than the baby faces or good guys. And I always rooted against Hulk Hogan because it's kind of like people now in football. They're sick of the Chiefs because they always win. And that's kind of the thing with Hogan. I always wanted to see Hogan lose. But when we got into the early 90s, like I said, I don't know if the wrestlers were getting older or it was me just starting to get tired with the product that I started to kind of grow away from it a little bit. And I think a lot of it was the powers that be in the WWF or Vince McMahon realized that the times were changing. He needed to update his game. So he started to bring in all these wrestlers with gimmicks, and it wasn't they had gimmicks in the 80s too, but they were the wrestlers that their names were centered around a gimmick. In the early 90s they really started to push gimmicks over wrestlers. So you got gimmicks like the berserker or the Viking, or one was called the goon, which in the hockey vernacular was the guy that goes out on the ice just to fight, and that was a character. And yeah, there was the Undertaker, but he was different because the Undertaker was a great wrestler and we could all see that. So that character was the standalone on it. But it seemed like a lot of them. There were still a handful of wrestlers that went by their name and were actual wrestlers, but for the most part they were really pushing kind of cartoonish gimmick characters over wrestling. So maybe that's why I started to get a little bit tired of it. And by the time we got to WrestleMania 9, which they held in actually the first WrestleMania that was outside at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, I remember watching that. And like I said, I was in my early 20s at that time. And just thinking to myself, I'm kind of done with this. This is like just too much of a spectacle, not enough substance within the event, not enough wrestling, because I really did love the wrestling. So I kind of got away from wrestling for a couple of years. And then what really brought me back in was the the WCW influx and the whole NWO thing. That's really what brought me back into watching wrestling all the time. So there was a couple years there, like say WrestleMania 9 and 10, that I didn't really pay attention to it. If it was on the TV and I was sitting around the house or the apartment, I would watch it. But before that, I would tape stuff on the VCR. Shows you how old I am. Or if it was on, I would absolutely sit down to watch it. So I kind of always blame the fact that I thought WrestleMania 9 was blasé for kind of my exit into being a wrestling fan for a while. But then this past week, the WWE and Peacock released a new documentary called WrestleMania 9 Becoming a Spectacle.
WrestleMania is coming to Las Vegas.
People weren't buying WrestleMania the way they had in the past.
We were used to just selling them out.
How do we do things we've never done before?
Welcome to Las Vegas.
This is the making of WrestleMania.
It was great because wrestlers were everywhere.
We wanted to make it highly theatrical.
It was out with the old and in with this new era of talent.
WrestleMania 9 was my moment.
And then the announcement came that Hulk Hogan was coming back.
I was told not to worry about him at all.
I don't think so.
All hell's gonna break loose.
Hulk's injured. We're not sure whether he's going to perform.
No one saw that coming.
If it works, it's a great idea. But if it doesn't work, you're going to be remembered forever for the wrong reasons.
And as I was watching that, I was really taken back to that time of being a wrestling fan and all the thoughts that I had watching WrestleMania 9 back in the 90s and all the comments that I just made to you. And as I was watching this and seeing how much they put into creating that outside WrestleMania with all of that spectacle. And if you watch the documentary, you'll hear some of the wrestlers say that was really the first one that they made it a huge spectacle, almost like a Super Bowl weekend in the NFL, where it was more than just, say, WrestleMania, the event. It was like a spectacle. And there was more than just the matches. There was the autograph signing, all the stuff to do outside of the place that they're having WrestleMania. And the Hall of Fame didn't start quite that big for another couple of years, but it was more than just the matches. And I didn't really realize it at the time. And I think it's kind of with the whole NWO WCW thing. It's sort of where I flipped allegiances for a little while. And because WCW basically just did wrestling. That's all they really did. They didn't do a whole lot of the gimmick spectacle thing. But watching this documentary, I was really surprised to learn that they kind of knew they were on this precipice of having to do something to change the game. So in a weird kind of way, if you're a wrestling fan, you know all about the Attitude Era of the WWF/WWE. And it was with the explosion of Stone Cold Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels with the Click, and little later on, The Rock, and all of that stuff, the whole Attitude Era where they really started to push the boundaries. But watching this documentary, you could really see this was sort of the opening salvo of the Attitude Era. The Attitude Era wouldn't arrive for a couple more years, But you could tell that they were really going out of their way to change the face of professional wrestling. And I didn't really appreciate it at the time, hence the reason I took a couple-year break. But watching this documentary, it really, really did sort of show older me what they were trying to do at the time. And I didn't realize it when I watched it way back in the 90s. But the amount of work they put in and what they were trying to do to change the face of wrestling was really the first step in the Attitude Era. So I'm glad I watched it. And now I kind of want to go back and rewatch WrestleMania 9 to sort of appreciate everything they did and what they were trying to achieve at the time. And I think I could set aside the way I was thinking way back then and kind of appreciate it a little bit more now. The whole Hogan thing aside, I still will hold on to that. And I think it's been proven since then that he's a big politicker when it comes to backstage stuff. But I have a couple clips that I'll play within this, or you've seen within this, where you kind of hear people talking about stuff like that.
What is this for?
Making of Mania.
The making of Mania? Oh no!
They were protecting the business a lot more back then, so it was weird to have cameras following you around, or you're just sitting there and a camera crew comes by and you're like, what the hell is this?
What are you doing?
No, that's for you ladies.
How you doing, fellas? I like this fuzzy mic you got here.
And you're like, what are you doing back here? You know, it just wasn't the norm.
You got some strange looks. Like, why is there a camera in my face?
Just something up. Is that a new camera?
This is for the Making of Mania.
You're peeling back the curtain.
Hi, guys.
I can remember looking at The Undertaker, like, just staring across the room like, why are you shooting me?
Backstage was kind of my safe place where I can be me and not have to worry about being in character. So anytime that I saw cameras, like, I went out of my way to find out what they were doing. I'm already giving the cameraman a hard time. You can see in this footage, I'm deadpanning somebody. I'm giving them the death stare, like, why are you filming? You know better. Got to protect the character.
If you haven't watched WrestleMania 9 Making a Spectacle and you have Peacock, seek it out and take a watch if you're a wrestling fan specifically. And let me know what you think about it, because I was really blown away with the amount of work and changes they were putting in to wrestling, not necessarily in ring, but behind the scenes. It debuted a segment a couple episodes ago, and I told the story that my friend and I thought it would be cool to do this segment of words that kids use that adults have no idea what they're saying. I mean, we all have them throughout all generations, have our own little nomenclature that we talk about, and adults have no idea what we mean. So I did one a couple episodes ago, and my friend gave me another one that her kids say that she didn't know what it was. So she gave me the word, and I'm like, well, it's interesting. Is it like, does it mean you're taking off, you're leaving? And she's like, yeah, how do you know that? I'm like, well, that's one that we used to kind of say a little bit back in the day, but she had no idea. And the phrase was dip. Apparently, our kids are go, well, I'm going to dip, meaning I'm going to leave. I'm like, yeah, we used to kind of use that one a little bit, not a ton, but yeah, I'm dipping out of here. Just sort of saying the word dip. So that's not something that's generalized to Gen Alpha. That's one that goes as far back to us Gen Xers and millennials would say they're going to dip when they're going to leave. So there's your word for this week. Do you use it? Do you say you're going to dip when you're going to take off? If not, then we'll just leave it at that. So I'll close this with a simple thank you all. If you have any comments about WrestleMania 9 making a spectacle or the word dip, let me know in the comments wherever it is you watch this. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. After all, it's now after dark, and nothing good ever happens until after dark. I'm gonna dip.